Terry Nation, back again for the last time. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. Destiny of the Daleks is Terry Nation's final outing as a writer for Doctor Who. This was 1979. He was already deep into production on Blake's 7, which shares an awful lot of DNA with Doctor Who and is an excellent show. But Terry Nation was fully involved with that for at least a couple of years, and then shortly thereafter moved to Hollywood, produced a bunch of MacGyver episodes, and in 1996 passed away from emphysema. So Destiny of the Daleks is his final contribution to Dalek lore. And it's actually better than I remembered it being. So far, it's actually pretty dang good. This is the story that's called back to in the 12th Doctor era in the first episode with Bill Potts, where, because of plot reasons, he takes her right into the heart of the Dalek-Movellan War. And this is it right here. And that was a great callback when they made it. The criticisms of the story are pretty much your standard Terry Nation Dalek story criticism. It's called Destiny of the Daleks. Everyone knows from the opening credits of the first episode that it's a Dalek story. It's right there in the title, and yet Terry Nation still insists on having a surprising reveal of the Daleks at the end of the first episode. It's an old habit of his that made sense back in the first and second Doctor era when each individual episode had a title and the Daleks appearing would actually genuinely be a surprise. But the fact that he's continuing to do that 16 years later is just a little bit tired. And honestly, the first episode could have used a bit more Daleks, which is a phrase I never thought I'd say. The more interesting thing is the second episode ends with the surprising appearance of Davros. It's not yet revealed in the story why the Daleks are searching for their long-lost creator, and I'll get to that tomorrow. But his appearance at the very end is actually genuinely good and creepy and well done. It's just unfortunate they weren't able to get back the same actor who played Davros in Genesis of the Daleks. He was engaged acting in another project right at that time and wasn't available for Doctor Who. They reused the same mask and put it on a new actor, and unfortunately the mask doesn't fit very well. It's very stiff, and so Davros throughout this story just looks very, very plasticky and expressionless. But again, that gets more into what'll happen in tomorrow's viewing. So other than the Daleks and Davros, the two most interesting things about this story is that it's the first appearance of Romana 2. Lalla Ward comes on board, takes over the character, and there's a fairly controversial comical scene at the beginning of the episode where apparently Romana just decides to regenerate. There's no triggering crisis that forces her to regenerate. She just, for whatever reason, decides she wants a new body and apparently can pick her bodies because the first thing she chooses is the body of Lalla Ward, the Princess Astra from the previous story. And when the Doctor objects, she then goes through a sequence of several other bodies, and it's very, very reminiscent of the scene early on in Tom Baker's first serial Robot, where he goes through a progression of costumes. It's exactly the same beat-for-beat comedic pacing, and it ends up with Lalla Ward in the role of Romana, in the embodiment of Princess Astra, and the Doctor just shrugs and accepts it, and the story goes from there. It's a weird scene that was played for humor and drew much consternation at the time because it had already been established several years earlier that Time Lords can only regenerate 12 times and have 13 bodies, so it would seem that Romana wasted several regenerations on a whim. There have been a couple of different efforts in both books and in comics to explain away this sequence, and in one of them it posits that the Romana that appears in this story is actually the TARDIS itself projecting an image, while Romana herself is trapped in the wardrobe. It's an interesting bit of retconning to explain away the regenerations. In any case, the other kind of interesting thing is that K9 appears at the beginning of the first episode. He's pretty much sidelined for the entire story, trapped inside the TARDIS, and he doesn't even speak. He coughs a couple of times, and the doctor ponders how a robot can have laryngitis. And the interesting thing about that is they didn't bother bringing in John Leeson to voice K9 for that episode because there was no speaking part, and so they simply used Roy Skelton, who does all the Dalek voices, to also do the coughing laryngetic K9. So in this one episode, K9 is performed not by John Leeson, but by Roy Skelton instead. And there's your Doctor Who trivia of the day. And speaking of the day, I'm going to call it a day, and I will see you again tomorrow.